commandment as important as the first. We cannot fulfill the first commandment to love God without obeying the second commandment to love our neighbor. Nor can we avoid this problem by narrowing our definition of neighbor to people in our neighborhood. That is, to those of our family, race, perspective, economics, or intellectual level, value system, or religion. In the parable of the Good Samaritan, Jesus makes the world my neighbor by qualifying anyone God puts in my path or who needs me as my neighbor. So you guys in Tri have heard me talk about I struggle with judging people. Sometimes I can just see a person come in and I immediately start this process of judging that person. Judgment does not come out of love. I struggle with it. When I catch myself, I stop it. But if I let the hamster wheel in my head start rolling, it continues on. And I don't know anything about this guy or woman. It's just that judgment starts. I think that judgment, the negative part of it is demonic influence, I guess one could say. Because I don't know where it comes from. Where else could it come from? It's not coming from God. It's not coming from Jesus. So I try to avoid judging as much as possible, because you never know. You could be denying yourself a great relationship with a person. But if you let that judgment put up the barriers, you're not going to go past those barriers to meet that person where they're at. Just like Jesus meets us where we're at. I remember several months ago when we used to meet in the bowling alley, as Steve calls it. Frank said he was no longer afraid of the unknown. That comes from the love that you realize you have in God. It's not, there's nothing you can do or not do to make God love you any more than you are. And that's the same thing we're supposed to do with each other. A pastor friend of mine always says we're supposed to love without expectation. Very easy to say, not so easy to do. So, that's my message today. Is it possible to truly love God the Father without loving others? That's my first question to anybody. Exchange?
Yeah.
Not just me.
For sure.
Doesn't even roll off the tongue right.
Huh?
Like an oxymoron right there.
Well, I don't know. Some people, I hear people all the time, Justin, saying, I'm a Christian. I love God. But really, everything about you says the opposite. Not you per se, but, speaking good Christianese is a common thing in America. Everybody claims they're Christians, good Christian people. Pastors get up and lie about people that passed away. He was a good, loving Christian man. No, he wasn't.
Yeah, for sure.
So you don't want to speak bad of the dead, So many people, my mom was a good woman. No, she wasn't. Mine wasn't. She was in the end, but she wasn't, as far as behavior goes. I think what God is saying to us, we got to love each other as co-creation, I guess, of each other. I don't have to like what you do or what you represent, but as a child of God, as a fellow child of God, that we have to love each other. If we don't, we're disrespecting what we claim we believe in, and that's God our Father, who, as Romans 5:8 tells us, he proved, think of that in a second, fellas. God felt the need to prove his love for us in that while we were still sinners, he didn't expect nothing out of us. While we were still sinners, he died for us. That's amazing to me that, a supreme being that could just, and we're done. He didn't want to do that to us, though. He loves us so much. Each and every one of us, so much. You guys that have kids, what could your kid do to make you love them any more or any less? Sure, you get pissed off at them, I know. My baby will be 39 and 40 in October. But there's nothing she could do or my sons could do to make me love them any more or less. God is at 1,000 times what my love is capable of now. And as a man, that is what we're called to do, I believe, is to love you. Pastor Neil shared Substack with me, which is on the internet. Not saying you should subject yourself to toxic people or relationships. Part of loving yourself well is to set boundaries. But there are people in our lives who we should maintain contact with, but we can't do that in a healthy way if we haven't grasped how to love imperfect people, starting with ourselves.
Yep.
Many people say that they love God and they love other people, but it comes back to you. You know, when we were all kids, we probably all heard about it. You point one, there's three back at you. That's love. You got to be able to love yourself, and then you got to ask yourself, do I really love myself? Jesus said, if you hate your brother, it's the same as committing murder. You know, so
I think it comes to, we learn that we're all image bearers of God.
Yeah.
Everyone in this room is an image bearer. And so what gets me, I think when that judgment starts, is that I don't remember that, you know, and not only am I not bearing God's image well, I'm judging someone just based on their image,
Yeah.
which is what God says that we all are. We're all
Yeah.
image bearers of Him. And I think that's a barrier sometimes. That,
Yeah.
But,
yeah, and go ahead, Robert.
To the question that you had asked, Doug, about whether or not the two opposing thoughts or complementary thoughts of loving God and then loving your fellow brothers, whether or not you can love God without doing so. And I think about Moses and how God was revealed to him. And before he was introduced to I am that I am, he was introduced to God's creation, the bush and the fire, and the two together. And it was like this revelation of one not being harmed due to the element of fire that's known to destroy and burn up. And in that, God spoke. In that, God revealed Himself to Moses. And so, working in lawn care, I'm around, God's creation always, seeing different varieties of bushes and trees and shrubs and what have you, and seeing the unique qualities of each of God's creation causes me to ponder on the Creator. And I believe that the same is true when we can get away from the biases of looking at one another from different backgrounds and cultures and religions and what have you, ethnic groups, that to see the diversity as something beautiful, not something to be disdained. And then seeing the diversity in all of God's creation should cause us to ponder on the Creator.
Yeah.
And so I believe that when you have someone going in to that claim of love, and they go in the reverse where they say, well, I love God, and then, well, I claim that I love God, but yet I treat His creation with disdain. But look at how God communicated it to us. He said, well, if you don't love your brother, you don't love me. Right? And so the reverse, the truth, we should have the love for God's creation in one another, and seeing God's image and likeness in one another.
Yeah.
And then that causing us to ponder the Creator who created it all in the diversity, in the same way we can appreciate the diversity of the garden.
Yeah. Thank you, Robert. I think, for me, goes back to public school. I went to Catholic school, and then Mom took some, put us in public school. And I started finding out people were lying to me about things, Historically speaking, many things I was being taught weren't true. So I started getting into this habit of questioning, why do I believe what I believe, whatever it is? And I think more people need to do that. A friend of mine used to always say, don't go through life on autopilot. Question everything. And I think that's a good practice to do it. Whatever your likes or dislikes, question yourself. Why do you like that, or why don't you like that? I always tease Aaron over there about his like of fishing, his exuberance of fishing. Why does he like that? I mean, I've never seen anybody get so excited in an aisle of fishing gear like Aaron does. It's pretty crazy. Marlon was with me. He remembers. Where's he? He's in the fishing aisle. We went shopping. Where's Aaron?
He bought him some red worms.
Well, at least you know where to find it.
Yeah, so, we all have those likes and dislikes. And both of those likes and dislikes can be barriers for us to love one another. That's what we're called to do. Every single one of us are called to love. It's not easy, but Jesus nowhere in the Bible, anywhere in his holy word does it say this is going to be easy. Come believe in me, follow me, it's going to be an easy way to go. Nowhere does it say that. The opposite is said over and over and over again. Go ahead, you got something to say there, Steve?
Yeah, I reflected on this like several years ago because the Holy Spirit really convicted me, because not only do I judge people, but it's like my whole background is based on training men, and in that process, there's always judgment.
Sure.
It's like analyzing. So I really had to study, okay, why did I follow that path? And you brought up the pastor that mentioned, like, I'm not saying that you need to be in an abusive relationship.
Right.
So my first question came years ago, was like, well, how does Jesus approach that person? How does Jesus minister to the person but not end up being abused as a person, as his ministry on earth? And I realized something that happened in my childhood at a very young age, and I'm like, I use judgment as protection.
Yeah.
Because
Sure.
our words are always, there's no neutral. Our words are always either building someone up or they're tearing someone down. And you can tear someone down by trying to elevate yourself.
Yes.
By saying, I do this, or I do that, or you should. Or we tear them down quite literally. We dismantle them. And in that, we're destroying God's creation.
Yeah.
And to prove that there's no neutrality, I have an example from my own life I'm willing to share. When I was 4 years old, I think God was trying to reach out to me because some bad things were already starting to happen. And so I had a dream that I went to heaven but didn't really see anything but a big glass translucent house, and I just felt comfortable. And that was it. But only being 4 years old, I ran downstairs.
Yeah.
Mom, you know, I just dreamed that I was in heaven. And all my mom said was, how do you know? And immediately I was crushed. Because as a 4-year-old, all of a sudden, Mom doesn't trust what I'm saying. She doesn't believe me. And how do I prove this to an adult? So immediately, the judgment started happening. It's like I need to be careful about what I say, because I never know when someone else is gonna attack me, tear me down. It doesn't sound like an attack. My mom certainly didn't think it was, but it pushed me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know that, well, us older guys, us guys that are 150 years old and older, that's what was pointed out to me last night. Tries all right, but most of the guys are 150 years old or older. Great to hear that. So, but, you know, when we were kids, you used to say that rhyme, you know, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hear me. Biggest lie ever told.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely, because words can cut far deeper than any sticks.
Yeah, God created
You know.
with words.
Yes. Spoken into being. That's another whole issue there that blows my mind, by the way. But words, you need to be aware of what you say to people. Those that are around me on a regular know I have trouble with that one too sometimes. So, but we need to be aware of how and what we say to people, how we say it, what we're saying. We're all as messed up as Tim. You know, we can't help it. I haven't been able to get my Tim stuff out all week because I started a job, so I've had to keep it in, and Chris informed me that he was the new Tim, so I'm like, okay, you can do that, buddy. I appreciate that. So, but really, guys, we need to question things.
You know, may I?
Yeah, of course you
Just
can.
on this real quick. The way that my mom always presented to me, she's not the most God-fearing woman as far as going to church, but she's a believer, my mother. You know, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around to hear it, it doesn't make a sound. Absolutely, we know that it does. It's just
How do you
because
know?
There's no one around. Same way I know that God's hearing every word I say when no one else is around.
Okay.
It makes a sound. It just makes sense. I can't communicate within myself, argue with myself, and just bring myself up, tear myself up. That's not just myself. That's him within myself.
Yeah.
That is, whether you want to see it as, Holy Spirit, God, you can't deny its realness. You can't deny that conversation you had within yourself, no matter what the conviction may or may not have been.
Right.
No matter what the emotion was, no matter how happy, sad, angry. It's real.
Yeah.
You can deny you can deny who that conversation was with all you want, but you can't deny that conversation happened.
That's a fact.
It wasn't just you.
Yeah.
There's something else greater than you did.
Mhm.
Same with that tree, man. There's always someone around to hear what you're saying. I don't care what you think, there's always someone there to hear it.
And on that note too, Justin, your influence, good or bad, you never know how you might. For me, my own testimony, these two guys, some of you guys might know them, Tom Miller and James Dean. They were at North Central, and they were Christians. They walked it. There was no doubt in my mind, they walked it. And I was a Buddhist at that time. I was a Buddhist for 18 years before I came to Christ. And I dogged them guys. Every time I seen them, I dogged them. Verbal rocks I were throwing at them constantly. But they never stopped loving me. They kept coming to me with Christian, what I understand to be Christian love. And that was part of what led me to getting on my knees and accepting Christ into my life. And so I think that all comes into play with our love of each other. We have to. We're commandment. It's not a suggestion. Hey, I would like it if you guys would love each other. It doesn't say that in Scripture. Sometimes I think they try to turn Jesus into this pansy. To an old term there, you older guys know that term. Into some cloud puff, hippie, bead-wearing soft guy, and he's not. Hollywood might try to paint him that way, but it's not true. God Almighty loves each and every one of us just as we are. We're His kids, His creation. And we need to reflect that. Just like when we go out in the community, we always hear about you representing Tribe. We're always hearing about representing that. We're representing Christ too, wherever we go. Don't know the exact address, but it says we're little Christ, little Jesuses. So when we meet people, that's what we should reflect. And that reflection comes from loving each other without judgment.
Represent
You
yourself.
hear people say, well, I wanted to give that guy some money, but I know he's going to spend it on booze. That's a cop-out. That is an absolute cop-out. A little story, about a week ago, me and Pastor Neil were going to see Maria in the hospital. And there was one of them guys on the corner with the sign up. Oh, wait, and he's hollering around a truck. Truck was blocking us. Hey, you! Hey, you! He didn't say bloke, though, so that... The guy might have thought he was calling him something obscene or something, I don't know. But the guy come peeking around the corner and he handed the guy a bag of food. Without question, what are you going to do with the food or anything like that? So when I hear people say, well, I wanted to help somebody, but I can't because their judgment starts telling them, well, you can't do it because they're going to buy booze, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. That's not the point. The point is to give. A joyful giver, whatever it is. Sometimes it's nothing more than a kind word. Even when someone calls you 150 years old, you're still doing that kind word. Go ahead, Mike.
I have a question, how do you, I have this buddy of mine, I've talked to Neil about it at work, and last week he was telling me, oh, Jesus is married, Jesus has kids. Where in the Bible does it say that?
It doesn't.
That's what I kept telling him.
You know, this is how I deal with those people. When they come up with stuff I know that's not in there, I read the Bible a lot, and I don't ever remember seeing that. Could you show me where that is?
Yeah.
They'll never come back, I promise you.
And he just kept telling me all these things about Jesus. Look it up. Look it up.
Show
Look it
me.
up on the internet.
Well, there's
The internet now.
And I looked it up, and it's okay, this ain't true.
well, they have Gnostic Gospels
Yeah.
from Gnosticism, and that's probably where they're getting their information from.
Yeah, it's
Gnosticism
me.
was
It's just
very
me.
prominent back then. That's what Paul was preaching against. They had stuff like that where Mary Magdalene wrote her own gospel,
Yeah.
which
Gospel of
But how
Thomas.
do you love a person like that?
You love the person, not their ways, or their attitudes, or their belief systems, or their color of their skin, or their gender. I'm only referring to two genders. As far as I'm concerned, there's only two. you don't base your love of God's creation on any of those things. You're just, like Dave said, we're the image of God. So you love that person as
They are.
the image of God. Forget all the other stuff that is, Oreo stuffing. It doesn't matter. What matters is that's an image, that person, that being is an image of God. And so we love that person as the image of God, not as everything they believe or what they are, who they are, any of that kind of stuff. Their politics or whatever. So that helps me get by, but I also think an important thing to do is, like at night when you lay down and you chill and it's just you and those voices Aaron was talking, or Justin was talking about it a little bit ago, and question your day. Could I have dealt with that better? How did I deal with that person? How did I do this? How did I do that? Because if you just go through life mindlessly, and I know he knows, maybe the principal over there might know too. There was a philosopher that said the unexamined life isn't worth living.
Yeah.
And I think it was Plato, might have been Socrates, I'm not sure. One of the Greek philosophers.
I was a public school principal. So.
One of those. But at any rate, that's a true statement. Just to go through life mindlessly is a waste.
So the whole book of Psalms, much of the book of Psalms is crying out,
Yeah.
questioning.
An examined life.
Yeah, it's an examined life. I mean, and it's pure emotion flowing out, I think.
And I think the more you examine, the more love comes through, because the more you examine, all those barriers tend to fall away. Because they're nothing. Years ago, when I was first got on the inside, I had a cellie named Tommy Poole, black guy. And one night we were just sitting there and we started questioning each other about things he was taught about white people and things I was taught about black people as kids. Everything we were taught were lies. Everything we were taught. So many things we both thought of that each other's culture that just weren't true. And I believe when it comes right down to the nitty-gritty, we all want the same things out of life. Security, safety for our families, happiness, good jobs, peace. And Jesus says, come to me and I'll give you my peace.